After 38 years of marriage, my wife abandoned me in a casino parking lot in Niagara Falls, with no wallet, no phone, and no way home. I was standing there in the freezing October rain, watching her drive away in our car, when an elderly man with a cane and a patch over one eye approached me and said, "Young man, I heard everything. Pretend to be my son. My driver will be here in 3 minutes, and that woman is about to realize she just left her husband standing next to the wealthiest property developer in Ontario." I know it sounds like something out of a film. I know you're probably thinking this can't be real. But I swear on my mother's grave, every word I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. And if you'll give me your time, I'll explain how that moment in a parking lot changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and what it means to truly be valued. My name is Thomas Morrison. Everyone calls me Tom. I'm 62 years old, and until that cursed weekend, I thought I understood my life. 38 years, married to Margaret. We'd met when I was 24, working as an apprentice mechanic at a garage in Scarborough. She was 19, working at the Tim Hortons next door, always bringing me coffee with extra cream the way I liked it. We got married 6 months later. Everyone said we were rushing. Maybe we were. But I loved her. God help me. I loved her with everything I had. We never had children. It wasn't for lack of trying. We went through the tests, the treatments, the hope that turned to disappointment month after month. Eventually, we stopped trying. Maggie said it was fine, that we had each other, that we'd travel and enjoy our freedom. But I always saw something in her eyes when she looked at other people's kids. A sadness she never quite admitted to. I worked hard my entire life, started as a mechanic, eventually opened my own small repair shop in East York. Nothing fancy, just honest work. Cars, trucks, the occasional motorcycle. I'd come home with oil under my fingernails and grease on my work clothes, but I always made sure Maggie had what she needed. We had a modest house in Scarborough, 2 bedrooms, needed work, but it was ours. We took modest holidays. We lived a modest life. But somewhere along the way, modest became not enough for Maggie. It started maybe 5 years ago. Little comments here and there. "Tom, the Johnsons just bought a cottage up in Muskoka. Wouldn't that be lovely?" "Tom, Sharon's husband bought her a new Lexus for her birthday. It must be nice to be appreciated." "Tom, when are we going to actually do something with our lives?" I tried. I really did. I took on extra work. I stayed late at the shop. I saved every dollar I could. But it was never enough. And then, about 2 years ago, I noticed she'd started dressing differently. Nicer clothes, more makeup. She'd gotten her hair done at expensive salons instead of the usual place. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages she never shared with me, typing away at things she never explained. I'm not a fool. I knew something was wrong. But I was too afraid to confront it, because confronting it meant losing her. And losing her meant admitting that 38 years of my life had been for nothing. That weekend in October, Maggie told me she wanted to go to Niagara Falls for the weekend. "For our anniversary," she said. Our anniversary wasn't for another month, but I didn't argue. I thought maybe this was a chance to fix things, to reconnect. I closed the shop early on Friday. We drove the hour and a half down the QEW and checked into a hotel near the falls. It should have been romantic. The falls lit up at night, the sound of the water, the cool autumn air. But Maggie was distracted the entire time. She kept checking her phone. She barely spoke to me during dinner. When we got back to the room, she said she was tired and went straight to bed, turning away from me. Saturday morning, she suggested we go to the casino. Casino Niagara. She'd never been particularly interested in gambling before, but she insisted, said it would be fun. So we went. I played the slots for a bit, lost $20, and decided I was done. Maggie said she wanted to try the blackjack tables. I said I'd wait for her at the bar. 2 hours passed. I texted her. No response. I walked around looking for her. The casino was massive, crowded, full of cigarette smoke, and the electronic sounds of slot machines. I finally found her at a table, but she wasn't alone. There was a man sitting next to her, tall, well-dressed, gray hair slicked back, expensive watch. They were laughing together. His hand was on her knee. I walked up to them. "Maggie, can we talk?" She looked at me like I was interrupting something important. "Tom, not now. I'm in the middle of a game." "Who's this?" I asked, looking at the man. He smiled at me, the kind of smile that said he knew exactly what was going on and didn't care. "Richard Weber. Friends call me Dick, and you must be the husband." The way he said, "the husband," like I was some inconvenient detail. "Maggie, what's going on?" She sighed, annoyed. "Tom, can you just go wait in the lobby or something? I'll be done in a bit. I'd like to talk to you now." "Well, I don't want to talk to you now." Her voice was sharp, cutting. The dealer and the other players at the table were staring. "You're embarrassing me." "I'm embarrassing you." "Yes, Tom, you are. You're always embarrassing me, with your grease-stained shirts and your cheap shoes and your complete inability to provide anything beyond the bare minimum." The words hit me like a physical blow. Richard, or Dick, or whatever his name was, just kept smiling. "Let's go outside," I said quietly. "Fine." She threw her cards down, grabbed her purse, and stormed toward the exit. I followed her through the casino, through the lobby, out into the parking lot. It was starting to rain. Cold, October rain that felt like needles on my skin. "What is this, Maggie? What's going on?" She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger. Anger I could have dealt with. This was contempt. Pure, cold contempt. "What's going on, Tom, is that I'm done." "Done with what?" "Done with you. Done with this pathetic excuse for a life you've given me. Done pretending that I'm happy living in that tiny house, driving that embarrassing car, being married to a man who smells like motor oil and has nothing to show for 40 years of work. 38 years, Maggie. We've been married 38 years. 38 years I'll never get back." She opened her purse and pulled out my wallet. I didn't even realize she'd taken it. You know what? I was going to wait until we got home to do this, but I can't stand another minute. "Maggie, what are you doing?" She opened my wallet, took out the cash, about $60, and put it in her purse. Then she pulled out my credit card, my debit card, and my driver's license. She held them for a moment, like she was considering something, then put them in her purse too. "Maggie, give those back." "No, I don't think I will." She pulled out her phone. "In fact, I think you can find your own way home, Tom. Richard has offered to drive me back to Toronto. We're going to stop by the house. I'm going to pack my things, and by the time you manage to drag yourself back, I'll be gone." "You're leaving me? For him?" "I'm leaving you for anyone who isn't you, Tom. Richard just happens to be available. He owns 3 car dealerships. He has a house in Oakville. He knows how to treat a woman properly." "Maggie, please." "Don't." She held up her hand. "Don't beg. It's pathetic. You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. I wasted the best years of my life on you, and I'm not wasting another second." She pulled the car keys out of her purse. Our car keys. The 15-year-old Honda Civic that was in both our names but that she was now claiming as hers alone. "How am I supposed to get home?" "I don't care, Tom. Walk. Hitchhike. Call someone." "Oh, wait. You can't call anyone, can you? Because I have your phone too." She pulled my phone out of her coat pocket. I hadn't even noticed it was missing. "Goodbye, Tom. My lawyer will be in contact." She turned and walked toward our car. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. She got in, started the engine, and drove away. I watched the red taillights disappear into the rain. I was alone, in a casino parking lot in Niagara Falls. No wallet, no phone, no identification, no money, no way home. It was raining harder now. I was wearing just a light jacket. I was 62 years old, and my wife of 38 years had just thrown me away like I was garbage. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe longer. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me, like everything I'd built my life on had just been revealed as a lie. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen this coming? "Excuse me, young man." I turned. There was an elderly man standing a few feet away, leaning on a polished wooden cane. He was tall, thin, wearing an expensive wool coat and a scarf. He had white hair, neatly combed, and a black eye patch over his left eye. The other eye, sharp and blue, was looking at me with something like concern. "I'm sorry," I said, wiping rain from my face. "Were you talking to me?" "I was. I'm afraid I overheard your conversation, or rather, I couldn't help but overhear it. That woman had quite the carrying voice." "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't apologize. I'm sorry you had to experience it." He paused. "I'm William Ashford. Most people call me Bill." "Tom Morrison." "Well, Tom, I have a proposition for you, and I know it's going to sound strange, but please hear me out." I just stared at him. I was cold, wet, and completely broken. "Okay. My driver is going to be here in a few minutes. When he arrives, I want you to pretend to be my son. Just go along with it. Don't ask questions. Just trust me." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand right now, but that woman, your wife, she hasn't left yet. I saw her pull around to the front entrance of the casino. She's waiting for someone. Probably this Richard fellow she mentioned. And when my car pulls up, when you get in with me, she's going to see it. And she's going to realize she made a terrible mistake." "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Bill smiled, a sad smile. "Because 20 years ago, I was standing in a hospital parking lot, and my son told me he never wanted to see me again. He said I'd been a terrible father, that I'd chosen work over family, that he was done with me. 3 months later, he died in a car accident. I never got to apologize. I never got to tell him I loved him. I've spent the last 20 years wishing I could go back and do things differently. He looked at me with that one good eye, and I saw decades of regret. I can't get my son back, Tom, but I can help you. I can help you show that woman what she's lost. And maybe, just maybe, I can finally do something right." Before I could respond, I heard the sound of an engine. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled into the parking lot, sleek and gleaming even in the rain. The driver, a man in a dark suit, got out and opened an umbrella. "Mr. Ashford, sir. Sorry for the delay. Traffic on the QEW was terrible." "Not a problem, James. I'd like you to meet my son, Thomas." James looked at me, surprised, but his expression quickly shifted to professional neutrality. "A pleasure to meet you, sir." "The pleasure's mine," I managed to say. Bill took my arm. "Help me to the car, son. These old bones don't work as well as they used to." I helped him walk to the Mercedes. James held the umbrella over us. The interior of the car was cream, leather, spotless, with a faint smell of expensive cologne. James held the door open, and Bill slid in. I followed. As James closed the door and walked around to the driver's seat, I looked out the window. And there she was, Maggie, standing under the casino awning with Richard, both of them staring at us. At the Mercedes. At me, sitting next to an obviously wealthy man, being treated with respect. Maggie's face went pale. Her mouth opened slightly. Richard said something to her, but she didn't seem to hear him. She was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Shock, confusion, and something else. Regret. Bill noticed where I was looking, waved to her son. I lifted my hand and gave a small wave. Maggie just stood there, frozen. James started the engine, and we pulled away smoothly, leaving Maggie and Richard standing in the rain. "Where to, Mr. Ashford?" James asked. "Home, James. I think Thomas and I have a lot to discuss." I sat there in stunned silence as we drove away from the casino, away from Niagara Falls, heading north toward Toronto. The rain was heavier now, drumming on the roof of the car. Bill sat beside me, quiet, giving me time to process. "I don't understand," I finally said. "Why did you do that?" "I told you. I saw myself in you. A man who gave everything and got nothing in return. A man who deserves better than he's been given. But you don't know anything about me." "I know enough. I know that woman treated you like garbage in front of strangers. I know she took everything from you and left you stranded. I know you're a good man, Tom, because a bad man would have responded with violence. You responded with dignity. That tells me everything I need to know." We drove in silence for a while. The city lights of Toronto started appearing in the distance. "Where are we going?" I asked. "My home. It's up in Muskoka. About 2 hours from here. I think you could use a warm meal, dry clothes, and a place to think." "I can't impose on you like that." "You're not imposing. I invited you. Besides, that house is far too large for one old man. It could use some life in it." "But I don't even know you." Bill turned to look at me with that one sharp blue eye. "Then let's get to know each other. I'll tell you my story, and you tell me yours. And by the time we get to Muskoka, we'll see if we can help each other." So I told him. I told him everything. About meeting Maggie at 19. About 38 years of marriage. About never being able to have children. About working myself to the bone to provide for her. About the shop, the modest life, the slow realization that she was pulling away. About the signs I'd ignored. About standing in that parking lot feeling like my entire life had been a waste. Bill listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Tom, I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy, but I want you to seriously consider it." "Okay. I want you to be my son. Not pretend. Actually, legally, become my son." I stared at him. "What?" "I'm 75 years old. I built an empire in real estate development. I have properties across Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I have no one to leave it to. My wife died 12 years ago. My son, as I mentioned, died 20 years ago. I have no other children, no siblings, no real family to speak of." "But you can't just adopt a 62-year-old man." "Actually, I can. Adult adoption is perfectly legal in Ontario. All it requires is consent from both parties and a judge's approval. I have excellent lawyers. They can make it happen." "Why would you want to do this?" "Because I'm tired of being alone, Tom. Because I see in you something I never saw in the business partners and sycophants who surround me. Honesty, integrity, humility. You're a man who worked his whole life and never complained. A man who loved his wife even when she didn't deserve it. That's the kind of man I want to call my son." "This is insane." "Perhaps. But consider this. You have nothing to go back to. Your wife is leaving you. You'll have to fight for half of a house that's probably worth, what, 300,000? 400,000? You'll go back to your shop, work until you're too old to turn a wrench, and retire on a pension that barely covers your bills." He paused, letting that sink in. "Or you can say yes to me. You can become my son. You can learn about my businesses. You can live in comfort. And when I die, which won't be long now at my age, you'll inherit everything. You'll be a wealthy man, Tom. You'll never have to worry about money again. And more importantly, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that woman will spend the rest of her life regretting what she did to you." I sat there, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. "I need time to think about this." "Of course, take all the time you need. For now, let's just get you somewhere warm and dry. We'll talk more tomorrow." We arrived at Bill's house just after 11 p.m. I say house, but that's not the right word. Estate, mansion. It was massive. A sprawling property on the shore of Lake Muskoka, surrounded by tall pines. The main building was stone and timber, with huge windows that glowed with warm light. There were other buildings scattered around the property. A boathouse, a guest house, what looked like a workshop. James pulled up to the main entrance. A woman in her 50s came out to greet us. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and wore a simple but elegant dress. "Mr. Ashford, welcome home. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." "Change of plans, Helen. This is Thomas Morrison. He'll be staying with us for a while. Can you please prepare the blue guest room and have cook make something warm? We've had a long drive." Helen looked at me with curiosity but asked no questions. "Of course, sir. right away. The interior of the house was stunning. Hardwood floors, stone fireplaces, cathedral ceilings with exposed beams, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum, comfortable leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. "Come," Bill said. "Let's sit by the fire." We sat in the main living room. Helen brought tea and sandwiches. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until I started eating. Bill watched me with that calm, assessing gaze. "Tell me, Tom, what do you want out of life?" "I don't know anymore. I thought I wanted a happy marriage, a simple life, to be appreciated for who I am." "And do you think you'll get that if you go back to your old life?" "No." "Then why not try something different?" "Because this feels like a dream, and I'm afraid I'm going to wake up." Bill smiled. "It's not a dream, Tom. It's an opportunity. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it." I stayed up most of that night, lying in the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced, staring at the ceiling of a guest room that was larger than my living room at home. I thought about Maggie, about 38 years, about standing in that parking lot, about Bill's offer. The next morning, I found Bill in his study, a massive room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a huge oak desk. He was reading the Sunday paper, a cup of coffee at his elbow. "Good morning, Tom. Sleep well?" "Not really." "That's understandable. Have you thought about my offer?" I sat down across from him. "I have, and I have questions." "Ask them." "What do you get out of this? Really?" "Peace. The knowledge that my life's work will go to someone who deserves it, someone who will honor it and not squander it, and companionship. I'm tired of being alone, Tom. I'm tired of having no one to talk to, no one to share meals with, no one who cares whether I live or die beyond what they might inherit." "What about your business associates? Your friends?" "Associates are interested in business, not in me. As for friends, most of them died years ago, and the ones who are left are just as lonely as I am." "You said your son died 20 years ago. What happened?" Bill's expression darkened. "We had a fight about the business, about my priorities. He said I cared more about money than about family. He was right, of course. I'd spent his entire childhood working, building the company. I missed his hockey games, his graduations, his wedding. I was always too busy, always chasing the next deal. And one day, he'd had enough." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "He told me he never wanted to see me again, that I wasn't his father anymore, just a stranger who happened to share his DNA, and I was too proud to apologize, too proud to admit he was right." 3 months later, he was driving home from work, and a drunk driver crossed the center line, killed him instantly. He was 35 years old. "I'm so sorry." "So am I. Every single day, I'd give every dollar I have to go back and do it differently. To put him first, to be the father he deserved, but I can't. All I can do is try to do better now." We sat in silence for a moment. "If I say yes," I said carefully, "what happens?" "First, we call my lawyers and start the adoption process. It will take a few months to finalize. In the meantime, you'll live here. I'll teach you about the business. You'll meet my key people. You'll learn how everything works. We'll also need to deal with your soon-to-be ex-wife. I'll hire you the best family lawyers in Toronto. They'll make sure she doesn't get a cent more than she's legally entitled to. She'll fight it. Let her fight. You have me now. And I promise you, Tom, no one fights me and wins." I took a deep breath, thought about going back to my empty house, my failing shop, my lonely life. Thought about Maggie with Richard, laughing at how easily she'd discarded me. "Yes. Yes. What?" "Yes, Dad. I accept." Bill's face transformed. He smiled wider than I'd seen yet, his one good eye glistening with tears. "Thank you, son. You've just made an old man very happy." The next 2 weeks were a blur. Bill's lawyers, a team of sharp, efficient professionals from one of Toronto's top firms, started the adoption paperwork immediately. They also started divorce proceedings against Maggie on my behalf, citing abandonment and emotional cruelty. Maggie called my old mobile number dozens of times, but Bill had gotten me a new phone with a new number. The only people who had it were Bill, Helen, James, and the lawyers. Bill introduced me to his inner circle, his chief financial officer, his property managers, his investment advisors. Some were surprised, others openly skeptical that I was really his son. But Bill was firm with all of them. "This is Thomas. He's my son, and he will be taking over the company when I retire. Treat him accordingly." I spent my days learning. Bill had files on every property, every investment, every business decision he'd made for the past 40 years. He explained everything patiently, answering my questions, teaching me not just what he did, but why he did it. "Business isn't just about money, Tom," he said one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports in his study. "It's about people. Understanding what they need, what they fear, what motivates them. You've worked with your hands your whole life. You understand the value of honest work. That makes you better qualified to run this company than most MBAs." Evenings, we'd have dinner together. Helen was an excellent cook. We'd talk about everything: my life, his life, books, politics, the lake, the weather, simple things. The kind of conversations I'd never really had with Maggie. "You know what I've realized?" I said one night. "What's that?" "I was lonely in my marriage, more lonely than I've been in my entire life. And now, for the first time in decades, I don't feel alone." Bill reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Neither do I, son. Neither do I." But of course, it couldn't stay peaceful forever. 3 weeks after I'd moved in with Bill, the doorbell rang while we were having breakfast. Helen answered it and came back looking troubled. "Mr. Ashford, there's a woman here claiming to be Thomas's wife. She's demanding to see him." Bill and I exchanged glances. "Show her into the sitting room, Helen. We'll be there shortly." We finished our coffee, taking our time. Let her wait. Let her see what it feels like. When we entered the sitting room, Maggie was standing by the window, looking out at the lake. She was dressed carefully, a nice dress, heels, makeup done perfectly. She turned when we entered, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. "Tom, thank God. I've been so worried about you." "Have you, Maggie?" "Of course. When you didn't come home that night, I thought something terrible had happened. And then when my lawyer told me you'd filed for divorce, I was shocked. What's going on?" Bill stepped forward. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm William Ashford. I believe you saw me briefly in Niagara Falls." Maggie's eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Ashford, yes, I thought I recognized you. You're the property developer. I've read about you." "Have you? How flattering. Then you know I don't tolerate games. So let's skip the performance. You didn't come here because you were worried about your husband. You came because you realized you made a mistake. You saw him get into my car, and you've spent the last 3 weeks wondering if maybe, just maybe, you threw away something valuable." Maggie's face flushed. "That's not true." "Isn't it? Tom told me everything, Mrs. Morrison, about how you treated him, about your affair with Mr. Weber, about how you abandoned him in a parking lot with no money, no phone, and no way to get home. We had a fight, couples fight. It doesn't mean anything." It meant something to Tom. It meant he finally saw you for who you really are. Maggie's eyes flicked to me, desperate now. "Tom, please, we can fix this. We've been married for 38 years. You can't just throw that away." "You threw it away, Maggie. The night you left me standing in the rain. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. But I love you, Tom. I always have." "No, you don't. You never did. You loved what I could give you. And when that wasn't enough, you went looking for someone who could give you more. That's not fair." "Fair?" I felt anger rising in me for the first time. "You want to talk about fair? I worked every single day for 38 years to give you a decent life. I never cheated. I never lied. I never made you feel small. And you repaid me by humiliating me in public, stealing my belongings, and abandoning me. And now you have the nerve to come here and tell me you love me? Tom, please." "No, I'm done, Maggie. Sign the divorce papers. Take what the law says you're entitled to, and move on with your life. I'm moving on with mine. With him? She looked at Bill with contempt. You're going to be this old man's charity case? His little project? Bill smiled coldly. I'm not his charity case, Mrs. Morrison. I'm his father. I'm adopting Thomas. Legally. He's going to be my son and my heir. Everything I have will be his when I'm gone. Maggie went pale. You're joking. I assure you, I'm not. Tom, you can't be serious. You're 62 years old. He can't just adopt you. Actually, he can. The paperwork is already in progress. I could see her mind working, calculating. How much is he worth? That's none of your business anymore. It is if you're trying to hide assets in a divorce. My lawyer will. Your lawyer will do nothing. Bill interrupted. Because everything Thomas inherits from me will come after your divorce is finalized. You have no legal claim to any of it. My lawyers have made absolutely certain of that. Maggie stared at us, her face a mask of rage and disbelief. This is insane. You're both insane. Perhaps. But at least we're honest about who we are. Can you say the same? She turned on her heel and stormed toward the door, then stopped and looked back. You're going to regret this, Tom. Both of you. The only regret I have, I said quietly, is that I didn't see who you really were 38 years ago. She left, slamming the door behind her. Bill put his hand on my shoulder. That was harder than you expected, wasn't it? Yes. But necessary. She needed to understand that you're not her victim anymore. Over the next few months, Maggie did exactly what Bill predicted. She fought. She hired aggressive lawyers. She claimed I'd been hiding assets. She alleged I'd abandoned her, not the other way around. She tried to get the adoption blocked, claiming Bill was mentally unfit and I was manipulating him. Bill's lawyers were better. They had witnesses from the casino who'd seen and heard everything. They had documentation of Maggie's affair with Richard. They had testimony from Richard's ex-wife about how he'd done exactly the same thing to her. They had Bill's medical records showing he was perfectly sound mentally. And they had something else. Something I didn't know Bill had arranged. In the courthouse hallway, just before our final hearing, Bill's lead lawyer, a formidable woman named Patricia Chen, pulled me aside. Tom, there's something you need to know. Your brother has filed a motion to intervene in the adoption. My brother? Daniel? Yes. He's claiming that Bill is being unduly influenced, that you're a con artist, and that as your closest living relative, he has a right to contest the adoption. I felt sick. Daniel and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. He'd always resented me. When our parents died, they'd left me the family home and him the cottage up north. The home was worth more, and Dan had never forgiven me for it, even though it was our parents' decision, not mine. He's lying, I said. He doesn't care about Bill. He just wants the money. I know, and we're going to prove it. In the courtroom, the judge listened to all sides. Maggie's lawyer argued I was a manipulator. Daniel's lawyer argued Bill was being taken advantage of. Patricia calmly presented evidence of my character. Letters from former employees at my shop, testimony from neighbors, documentation of every dollar I'd ever earned and every honest way I'd earned it. And then she called Bill to the stand. Mr. Ashford, can you tell the court why you've chosen to adopt Thomas Morrison? Bill sat straight, his voice clear and strong despite his age. Because for 20 years, I've lived with the regret of losing my son. Not to death, though that came eventually, but to my own pride and foolishness. I chose work over family. I chose money over love. And I paid the price. He paused. When I met Thomas in that parking lot, I saw a man who'd made all the opposite choices, who'd put family first, even when that family didn't deserve it, who'd worked honestly his entire life and never complained, who'd been loyal and kind and humble, and I saw a chance to do something I've never been able to do before, to be a real father to someone who actually values it. But he's 62 years old. Isn't this unusual? Unusual? Perhaps. But who says family has to follow conventional rules? Thomas may be 62, but he needed a father, and I needed a son. We found each other when we both needed it most. If that's not what family is supposed to be, I don't know what is. The judge looked at me. Mr. Morrison, is this your wish as well? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. Bill has shown me more love and respect in 3 months than I received in 38 years of marriage. He's taught me, guided me, and made me feel valued for the first time in my life. I'd be honored to be his son. The judge took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Morrison, Daniel Morrison, I've reviewed all the evidence. I find no indication of undue influence, manipulation, or mental incapacity. I find 2 adults who have freely chosen to form a family in an unconventional but entirely legal manner. He looked at Maggie and Daniel. As for you 2, your objections are noted but rejected. Mrs. Morrison, you'll receive your equitable share of the marital assets, as determined by law, but you have no claim to any future inheritance Mr. Thomas Morrison may receive. Mr. Daniel Morrison, you have no legal standing to contest this adoption. Your motion is denied. He signed the papers with a flourish. Adoption granted. Mr. Thomas Morrison, you are now legally the son and heir of Mr. William Ashford. Congratulations to you both. I turned to Bill. He was crying. I was crying. We embraced there in the courtroom while Maggie and Daniel watched with identical expressions of fury and disbelief. That night, we celebrated at the house. Helen had made a proper feast. James opened a bottle of champagne that cost more than my old car. Bill raised his glass. To my son, may you always remember that family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty, about choosing each other every single day. To my father, I replied. Thank you for seeing value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. We clinked glasses, and I felt, for the first time in longer than I could remember, completely at peace. Bill lived for another 3 years after that. 3 beautiful years. He taught me everything he knew about business. We traveled together. We spent mornings on the lake in his boat. We spent evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. He met my few real friends and welcomed them. I met his old business partners and earned their respect. He died peacefully in his sleep one October morning, exactly 3 years to the day after we'd met in that parking lot. I was with him. I held his hand. His last words to me were, "Thank you, son, for giving an old man's life meaning again." I inherited everything, the company, the properties, the investments, a fortune worth over $400 million. But more importantly, I inherited his wisdom, his values, and his belief that I was worth something. I kept my promise to him. I ran the company honestly. I treated employees fairly. I made decisions he would have been proud of. And I set up a foundation in his name to help other people who'd been abandoned, betrayed, or forgotten. As for Maggie, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Richard broke up 6 months after the adoption was finalized. Apparently, his car dealerships weren't doing as well as he'd claimed, and when she realized he wasn't the meal ticket she'd thought, she left him too. Last I heard, she was living in a small apartment in Mississauga, working retail. Daniel tried to sue me for a portion of Bill's estate, claiming I'd manipulated an old man. The lawsuit was dismissed within a month. I never heard from him again. I'm 70 now. I sold the company 2 years ago for a sum that would have been unimaginable to the man standing in that parking lot. I kept the house in Muskoka. I sit by the same fire Bill and I sat by. I look at the same lake, and I think about how one moment of kindness from a stranger changed everything. Last month, I was at Casino Niagara for a charity event. Just a coincidence. I wasn't seeking it out, but I found myself walking through that same parking lot where it all began. It was October again, raining again, and I saw a man, maybe 50, standing alone, looking lost. A woman was driving away, and I could see from his face exactly what had just happened to him. I walked over to him. "Excuse me, are you all right?" He looked at me, tears mixing with rain. My wife just left me here. She took everything. I don't even know how to get home. I pulled out my phone. Let me call you a car. Where do you live? Kitchener, but I can't afford. It's taken care of. And listen to me very carefully. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's not the end. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the beginning of something better. Trust me on that. He stared at me. How do you know? I smiled. Because 8 years ago, I was standing exactly where you are. And a stranger helped me. And it changed my life. So now I'm helping you. Because that's what we do. We help each other. I arranged for a car to take him home. I gave him my card and told him to call me if he needed anything. Legal help, job references, just someone to talk to. I told him the same thing Bill told me, that he deserved better, that his value wasn't determined by someone who couldn't see it. I don't know if he'll call, but I hope he does, because I learned something from Bill, something that Maggie and Daniel never understood. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you do with it, who you help with it, how you use it to make the world a little bit better than you found it. Bill saved me that day in the parking lot. Not just financially, but spiritually. He gave me back my dignity, my self-worth, my belief that I mattered. And now I spend every day trying to do the same for others, because that's what real family does. Real family lifts you up when you're down, sees value in you when others don't, chooses you not out of obligation, but out of love. I lost a wife who never truly loved me. I lost a brother who only saw me as competition, but I gained a father who changed my life. And I learned that sometimes the worst betrayal is actually the greatest blessing in disguise. My name is Thomas Ashford. I'm 70 years old, and this is the true story of how a stranger became my father and how losing everything helped me find what really mattered. Mr. Whitmore, I cannot process this withdrawal. The bank teller's voice was quiet, but there was something in her tone that made my hand freeze halfway to signing the form. I looked up at her. Young woman, maybe 30, with kind eyes that were now filled with something I couldn't quite place. Concern? Fear? I'm sorry, I said, confused. There must be some mistake. I called ahead. My son helped me arrange this. I need to withdraw $45,000 for the renovations on my house. She glanced around the TD Canada Trust branch, then leaned forward slightly. Her name tag read, Sarah Chen. Mr. Whitmore, she said again, even quieter this time. This signature doesn't match the one we have on file for your power of attorney documents. And sir, I need to tell you something. Can you please come to the manager's office with me? That was 6 months ago. 6 months since my entire world turned upside down. But I should start from the beginning. My name is Robert Whitmore. I'm 67 years old, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty good life for a widower in Vancouver. My wife Margaret died 4 years ago after a long battle with cancer. Those were dark days, but I got through them. I had my son, David. He was always there, always calling, always visiting. After Margaret died, David insisted I move in with him and his wife, Jennifer. Dad, you shouldn't be alone in that big house, he'd said. Come, stay with us. We have plenty of room, and Jennifer would love to have you. I was reluctant at first. I'm a proud man, I suppose. Spent 40 years as an engineer for BC Hydro, owned my home outright, had a decent pension. I didn't want to be a burden, but David was persistent, and honestly, the house felt so empty without Margaret's laugh echoing through it. So I sold my house in Kitsilano, beautiful property, worth about $1.5 million. I put the money in my savings, kept my investments separate, and moved into David and Jennifer's place in Richmond. The first year was fine, good, even. Jennifer seemed genuinely happy to have me there. She'd make dinner, we'd watch hockey night in Canada together, talk about the Canucks. David had a good job in tech, and Jennifer worked as a real estate agent. They seemed comfortable, happy, but then things started to change. It was subtle at first. Jennifer would make comments about downsizing, about how seniors my age didn't really need so much money just sitting in accounts. You should enjoy it while you can, Robert, she'd say with a smile. Travel. Spend it on yourself. David started bringing up estate planning. Dad, you really should update your will. Make sure everything's in order. You know, in case something happens. I didn't think much of it at the time. It seemed like normal adult children concern. Margaret and I had always been careful about our finances, and I assumed David had learned that from us. Then came the power of attorney suggestion. Dad, you're getting older, David had said one evening about 8 months ago. What if something happens and you can't make decisions? Jennifer and I think it would be smart for you to give me power of attorney, just for medical and financial decisions in case of emergency. I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong, but David pressed, Dad, I'm your only child. Who else would do it? I'm just trying to protect you, protect your interests. So I agreed. We went to a lawyer. I signed documents. David became my power of attorney. That's when things really started to deteriorate. Suddenly, David was very interested in my finances. He wanted access to my online banking. Just to help you manage things, Dad. Make sure bills get paid. He wanted copies of my investment statements. To help with your tax planning. And Jennifer's comments became more pointed, more frequent. Robert, you know David and I have been talking about upgrading the house, she'd said one day. We really need to renovate the kitchen. It would increase the home value significantly. We were thinking, since you're living here rent-free, maybe you could contribute? Say, $50,000? I felt my chest tighten. Jennifer, I pay for groceries. I cover my own expenses. Yes, but Robert, housing in Richmond is expensive. We're basically supporting you. David jumped in quickly. What Jennifer means, Dad, is that we could all benefit from some home improvements. You'd enjoy a nicer kitchen too, right? I didn't have a good answer. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should contribute more. But something nagged at me. A voice in my head that sounded like Margaret. Be careful, Robert. Trust, but verify. Then I started noticing other things. Mail that I used to receive was disappearing. Statements from my bank, from my investment company. When I asked David about it, he'd say, Oh, I'm handling that now, Dad. Remember? You gave me POA. Don't worry about it. I tried to check my online banking one day, but my password didn't work. When I asked David, he said the bank must have reset it for security. I'll get you the new password, Dad. Don't worry. But he never did. I started feeling anxious, trapped, almost. But I told myself I was being paranoid. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd sat by Margaret's bedside in the hospital, holding her hand. Then came the phone call from my investment advisor. Robert, I just wanted to confirm you're okay with moving $150,000 from your RRSP to a joint account with your son, he'd said. My blood ran cold. I never authorized that. There was a pause. But we have the paperwork, signed by your power of attorney. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. I didn't confront David immediately. Maybe I should have. But I needed to understand what was happening. I needed proof. I started paying attention, really paying attention. I noticed David and Jennifer having whispered conversations that would stop abruptly when I walked in. I noticed Jennifer's new designer handbags, David's new Audi in the driveway. Work bonus, he'd said with a shrug. One night, I couldn't sleep. I came downstairs to get some water and heard them talking in the kitchen. He's not going to live forever, Jennifer's voice. And honestly, David, the longer this takes, the more he's going to spend down that nest egg. I know, but we need to be careful. If he gets suspicious. He won't. He trusts you completely. He's your father. My hand shook as I held my water glass. I quietly went back upstairs. That's when I started planning my own investigation. I went to my bank branch, the one where I'd banked for 30 years. I asked to see someone about my accounts. That's when I met Sarah, the teller who would eventually save me from financial ruin. Mr. Whitmore, she'd said, after pulling up my information, I need to tell you something. Someone with your power of attorney has been making significant withdrawals from your accounts. Is this something you're aware of? I felt dizzy. How much? Over the past 6 months, $230,000 have been transferred out of your various accounts. $230,000. There's something else, Sarah continued. Last week, Someone called claiming to be you, trying to authorize a wire transfer of your entire investment portfolio to an offshore account. We flagged it as suspicious and declined. And now, today, your son is here trying to withdraw $45,000 in cash, but the signature on his POA documents doesn't match the original signature we have on file from when you first set it up. My whole body went numb. Mr. Whitmore, I think you need to speak with our manager, and possibly the police. The next 3 hours were a blur. The bank manager, a stern woman named Patricia, took me into her office. She showed me statements, transaction records, documents. David had been systematically draining my accounts. The RRSP transfer, my advisor mentioned, the new joint account that I never agreed to. Multiple cash withdrawals of 5, 10, 15,000 at a time. But the worst part was the document she showed me next. This is a new will that was filed with a lawyer's office 3 weeks ago, Patricia said, sliding a paper across her desk. According to this, you're leaving your entire estate to your son David and his wife Jennifer, including any remaining assets, your life insurance, everything. I stared at the signature at the bottom. It looked like mine, but I had never signed this document. I had never seen it before. Mr. Whitmore, Patricia said gently, I think your son forged your signature, and I think you need to take immediate action. I sat there, in that office, feeling like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. This was my son, my only child. The baby Margaret and I had brought home from the hospital. The toddler who'd called me daddy and hugged my legs. The teenager who'd asked my advice about girls. The man who'd stood beside me at Margaret's funeral. And he was stealing from me. Sarah, the teller who'd flagged everything, came into the office. Mr. Whitmore, I know this is hard, but you need to act now. Your son is still in the branch. We told him there's a delay processing his request. Security is with him. You need to decide what to do. What do you do when the person you trust most in the world betrays you? I thought about Margaret. What would she tell me to do? And I knew. She'd tell me to be smart, to protect myself, to not let emotion cloud my judgment. Call the police, I said. And I need a lawyer. The next hour was surreal. Vancouver police officers arrived. I had to tell them everything, show them the evidence. And then I had to do the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. I had to confront my son. They brought David into the manager's office. He looked confused at first, then worried when he saw the police officers. Then his eyes met mine, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Panic. Dad, what's going on? He asked, trying to sound casual. David, I said, and my voice cracked. I cleared my throat. David, I know what you've been doing. His face went pale. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. You've been stealing from me, forging my signature, draining my accounts. That's insane. I'm your power of attorney. I'm managing your money. For you. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. My voice rose. You stole $230,000 from me, David. You forged a new will. You were planning to take everything. The police officer stepped forward. Mr. David Whitmore, we need to ask you some questions. I watched my son's face cycle through emotions, denial, anger, and then, finally, something like calculation. Dad, listen. I can explain. We needed the money. Jennifer and I have debts. We were going to pay you back. By forging my will? By planning to wait until I died? David's jaw tightened. You have more money than you need. You're just sitting on it. We're your family. You deserve nothing, I said, and I barely recognized my own voice. You're my son, and I loved you. I gave you everything, and you repaid me by stealing from me. The investigation took 3 months. Police forensics examined the forged documents. They traced the money. They found that David and Jennifer had been living far beyond their means. Jennifer's real estate career wasn't going well. David had lost money in cryptocurrency investments. They'd maxed out credit cards, taken out loans, and they'd decided that my money was the solution. The plan, as it emerged through investigation and Jennifer's eventual confession, was even worse than I'd thought. They weren't just stealing. They were waiting. waiting for me to die naturally, or maybe not so naturally. They'd been researching medications that could cause heart problems in elderly patients. They'd been increasing my blood pressure medication dosage without me knowing. The doctors confirmed it. I'd been feeling increasingly weak, dizzy. I'd thought it was just age, but David had been slowly poisoning me. My own son was trying to kill me. The trial was grueling. I had to sit there, day after day, listening to the evidence. Listening to David and Jennifer's lawyer try to paint me as a confused old man who didn't understand his own finances. Listening to them try to claim that the power of attorney gave David the right to do whatever he wanted with my money. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers, the changed medications, the fake will. In the end, David pleaded guilty to fraud, forgery, and attempted harm. Jennifer pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud. The judge was not sympathetic. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore," she'd said, looking at them with cold eyes, "you violated the deepest trust that exists between a parent and child, between family members. You stole from someone who loved you, who trusted you. You planned to let him die, possibly even hasten that process. While I cannot prove intent to murder beyond reasonable doubt, your actions demonstrate a callous disregard for human life." David got 6 years. Jennifer got 4. I sat in that courtroom and watched my son being led away in handcuffs, and I felt nothing. The man I'd loved, the son I'd raised, was gone. In his place was a stranger who'd been willing to kill me for money. That was 4 months ago. Since then, I've had to rebuild my life. I recovered most of my money, though not all. Legal fees, repayments to the bank for their investigation costs, moving expenses. I moved into a nice apartment in Kerrisdale, smaller than my old house, but it's mine. I got a dog, a golden retriever named Maggie, after Margaret. She keeps me company. I reconnected with old friends from my engineering days, joined a seniors walking group, started volunteering at a financial literacy program, teaching other seniors about protecting themselves from financial abuse. Because here's what I learned. This happens more than you think. Children stealing from their parents, family members abusing trust. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in Canada, and most victims never report it. Because they're ashamed. Because they love their children and don't want to see them prosecuted. Because they can't believe it's happening. I almost didn't report it. Even standing in that bank, even seeing the evidence, part of me wanted to believe there was an explanation, that my son wasn't really a thief and a would-be killer. But Sarah Chen, that bank teller, gave me perspective. "Mr. Whitmore," she'd said that first day, "I know this is your son, but imagine if this was a stranger who'd done this to you. Would you hesitate to call the police?" She was right, and that's what saved me. David writes to me sometimes from prison. Long letters full of apologies and excuses. He says Jennifer pushed him into it. He says he was desperate. He says he still loves me and hopes I can forgive him someday. I don't read them anymore. My lawyer keeps them, in case we need them for something. But I don't read them. Because here's the truth. Whether David was weak or greedy or desperate doesn't matter. He made choices. He chose to steal. He chose to forge documents. He chose to poison me slowly. Those were his choices. And I've made my choice. To move forward. To live the rest of my life on my terms. I think about Margaret sometimes. Wonder what she'd think about all this. She always saw the best in people, especially David. Maybe she would have forgiven him. Maybe she would have been heartbroken but still hopeful for reconciliation. But I'm not Margaret, and I can't forgive someone who tried to kill me, even if that someone is my son. People ask me if I'm angry. The truth is, I was. For a long time, I was furious. Betrayal like that, it burns. It consumes you. But anger is exhausting. And I'm 67 years old. I don't have time to waste on anger. Instead, I focus on gratitude. Grateful for Sarah Chen, a young woman who could have just processed the transaction and collected her paycheck. But instead, she paid attention. She noticed the inconsistencies. She cared enough to speak up. I sent her a thank you note afterward, and a recommendation to her boss. She saved my life. in every sense of the word. I'm grateful for the police officers who took my case seriously, for the bank manager who helped me secure my accounts, for my lawyer who fought for me, for my old friends who didn't judge me when I told them what happened, and I'm grateful for Maggie, who doesn't care about money or wills or betrayal. She just wants her walks and her treats and to sleep at the foot of my bed. It's a quiet life now, but it's mine, and it's honest. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what might have happened if Sarah hadn't noticed, if she'd just processed David's withdrawal. If I'd never found out, I probably would have died. Maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year. The increased medication would have caused a heart attack or a stroke. David and Jennifer would have inherited everything. They would have played the role of grieving son and daughter-in-law at my funeral, and no one would have known the truth. That thought keeps me up sometimes, the proximity of it all, how close I came to becoming a statistic. But I also think about this. I got a second chance. Not many people in my situation do. Most find out too late, when the money's gone and there's no way to recover it, or they never find out at all. So I use this second chance. I volunteer. I speak at senior centers about financial protection. I tell my story, painful as it is, because maybe it'll help someone else recognize the warning signs. And those warning signs are always the same. Family members suddenly very interested in finances, pressure to sign power of attorney documents, disappearing mail, changed passwords, unexplained withdrawals. If you're reading this, if you're a senior, please listen. Protect yourself. Keep control of your own finances as long as you can. Don't give power of attorney to anyone unless absolutely necessary, and even then, have oversight. Check your statements. Keep copies of everything. And if something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Because predators count on your love, your trust, your reluctance to believe the worst of your own family. That's how they operate. That's how David operated. And if you're someone taking care of an elderly parent, please, I beg you, be honest. If you need financial help, ask. Don't steal. Don't manipulate. Don't abuse the trust they've placed in you. Because once that trust is broken, it can never be repaired. Not really. I learned that the hard way. David will get out of prison in a few years, assuming good behavior. I don't know what I'll do when that happens. Whether I'll see him, whether he'll try to contact me beyond the letters I don't read. Part of me hopes he's learned something, that he's genuinely remorseful, that he's become a better person. But the bigger part of me knows the truth. The son I loved is gone, has been gone for years, probably. Maybe he was always a fiction, a story I told myself about who my child was. The man in prison is someone else, someone I don't know, someone I don't want to know, and that's okay. I've made peace with it. It took therapy, time, tears, but I've made peace. I'm Robert Whitmore. I'm 67 years old. I'm a survivor of elder financial abuse and attempted murder. I'm a widower, a retiree, a volunteer. I'm the owner of a wonderful dog. I'm a friend to many, and I'm still here, still standing, still living. That's enough. That's more than enough. On Sunday mornings, I take Maggie to Stanley Park. We walk the seawall, watch the ships in the harbor, breathe the salt air. The same walk Margaret and I used to take 40 years ago when we were young and in love and thought we had forever. I don't have forever. None of us do. But I have now. This moment. This day. This second chance that Sarah Chen gave me when she looked at a signature and knew something was wrong. And I'm not wasting it. Not on anger, not on regret, not on wondering what I could have done differently or why David chose this path. I'm spending it on life. Real life. Honest life. That's my revenge, I suppose. Though it doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like victory. I survived. I protected myself. I fought back. And now, I'm helping others do the same. That's what Margaret would want. That's what I want. To turn this pain into purpose. This betrayal into a lesson. This near-death experience into a reason to keep living. So if you take anything from my story, take this. Trust, but verify. Love your family, but protect yourself. And if someone tells you something feels wrong, especially someone like a bank teller who has no reason to lie. Listen to them. Sarah Chen saved my life because she paid attention to details and had the courage to speak up. Be like Sarah. Pay attention. Speak up. Help someone who might not realize they need help, because somewhere out there is another elderly person being victimized by someone they trust. And maybe if we all pay attention, if we all speak up, we can save them too. That's my hope, anyway. That something good comes from this nightmare. That my pain prevents someone else's pain. It won't bring back my son, the one I thought I had, but maybe it'll save someone else's father. And that's enough reason to keep going. Enough reason to keep telling the story. Enough reason to keep living.